Crane Wives, Michigan-based four-piece indie band that has changed my brain chemistry forever. Over the course of their being together, they have released 4 studio albums and a live album with a series of singles between them. One of these albums, and the one that most recently has taken root in the crevices of my brain, is their 2015 album, Coyote Stories. And when I get brainworms, they tend to tell me to make things, whether that's a painting, or just a sketch, or bracelets, or, now that I have taken textiles courses, clothing. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be making a pseudo pinafore based on Coyote Stories. It's just going to be pretty much a skirtall semi-pinafore. The definitions have shifted as we just apply old terminology to new clothes to make them sound cooler. I'm going to be using the bodice, the structured bodice from this pattern, and then I'm going to be ripping the pattern for the skirt pieces off of a Hot Topic skirt that I have. It's going to have pockets, and in order to be a pinafore, I'm going to extend these back yoke straps to be able to be pinned to the front. Now the most challenging aspect of this, and the part that is going to take the longest, is the embroidery on the back. I'm going to mimic the design of the album cover along the rim of the skirt, almost like a poodle skirt, but it should look really, really cool when I'm done with it. I'm going to be pretty closely following the album art since the style that it was drawn in is pretty embroidery-like anyway. Instead of having lines and smooth colors for a lot of it, it is just lines. So that shouldn't be too difficult design-wise. It's just gonna take forever. So that's the game plan. I have this fabric from Joann's that matches the album cover color pretty well, and that's it. Let's get started. I decided to start with the skirt so I could get started on the bulk of the embroidery while I worked on the bodice. Obviously, this starts with tracing the skirt and cutting the pieces out, but while I was at it, I cut the bodice pieces too. In the time between the last clip and these time lapses, I suffered 2 clinical mental breakdowns, developed an unhealthy obsession with 2000s rock band My Chemical Romance, and dyed my hair black. Surprisingly, these 3 events were not related to each other in any conscious way. I also decided I didn't want to wear a mask every time I turned a camera on myself. If my future employers find my account, that's their problem. Anyway, here's all the pieces laid out on the fabric. To sew the skirt, I first sewed the pockets to the sides of both panels, then flipped the pockets out and laid the panels on top of each other, good sides facing, pockets aligned, and flipped out. I pinned the side seams together and sewed one big line down the top of the skirt, along the pocket seams, and down the rest of the skirt side. You can tell from the faces I'm making that this is my first time sewing with a machine in a few months. Then I flipped the skirt right side out, pressed the pocket seams nice and flat, and tried it on. The next step was to sketch out the album art and start sewing, which I did off camera. A little update on the embroidery. I did start it. It's just that most of the sewing that I've been doing has been in places in like public where it's not easy or like appropriate to film time lapses. So this is what I have so far. I have the outlines sketched out for the girl and the wooden coyote, the one on the far right, and then this one, which this took me about a week of like off and on work. I don't have anything else sketched out. I still need to do that. I'm on Thanksgiving break, so hopefully that means that I can just buckle down and sew, which is going to be really fun. This all has been done in the past like 2 days because I'm in a sewing mood, but it's looking really, really cool, and I've tried the skirt on and everything, and it's gonna be really, really cool when this is done. While I was doing all of this, I was also sewing the bodice together. The pattern I'm using to construct the bodice is fully lined and includes a stretchy elastic back, and I'm not doing that for this project because it's not in my vision, and I also didn't buy elastics when I bought fabric. Instead of following the pattern here, I just traced the back piece from the finished dress and eyeballed a half-inch seam allowance around the other edges. I cut a lining piece for the back as well to match the rest of the bodice. The pattern doesn't account for this, so hopefully I can fudge it and everything will work fine. Then it's a pretty simple process of following the pattern instructions and sewing seams where it tells me to. The seams look really messy, but that'll fix itself when I sew in the lining. With the way the pattern's lining works, I'm essentially making 2 bodice pieces, slapping them together, turning them inside out, and pressing them flat. But before I can do that, do you want to know what I have to do? If you answered more embroidery, you're correct. I thought the pinafore would look unbalanced if I didn't have some embroidered element on the front panel, and I eventually settled on mountains, as a reference to Rock Slide and Of Everlong, which both mention mountains. Embroidery update, again, Christmas break was really good for my embroidering productivity. I got the entire rest of the wooden coyote done, besides these little, like, lantern lights, which I think I'm gonna do when I come back and do this coyote here. I started the fox, which I think in the long run was a mistake, in the form of like project flow, because I figured, oh, I'll just do like the second hardest part and then it'll just be kind of smooth sailing. I should have done it a coyote as a palette cleanser, because whereas the wooden coyote, I could like break it up into a bunch of pieces, the fox is just orange and I'm getting sick of it. So I ran out of thread for the section that I'm currently working on. And so I think I'm either gonna do the white sections, or I might just take a break from the fox and do another ghost coyote. I don't know. We'll see what the vibes say. But that's where we are. I think the wooden coyote and the girl look really, really cool, and I'm very proud of them. And I think it would be miraculous if I could get this whole project done before the Crane Wives come to Iowa. They haven't announced anything in Iowa yet, which is, you know, saying something. I've given myself a long time to do this, but I think it'd be cool. The vibes said the only way out is through, so I kept plugging away at the fox. Was this good for me? Who's to say? This fox just eats up thread like nobody's business. Embroidery update again. The skirt is finished. There she is in all her glory. I'm currently finishing up sewing the mountains on the bodice. And then I have to cut a lining for the skirt, cut a waistband, and then, you know, sew the zipper. But this is what we're looking at. It's really sick. I'm really excited. I gave myself the deadline of before they come to Iowa. Guess what? They're coming to Iowa on June 8th. I'm going. I'm so excited. So we have a deadline now. It's June 8th. But I think I'm definitely going to get it done at least a month before that. So, woohoo! Initially, I was just going to keep the skirt a single layer, as I wanted to keep the bodice lining just for the structure it would provide, but I decided to cut a lining for the skirt as well, since the fabric is pretty thin, and it'll cover the back of the embroidery to help secure it. The original bodice pattern doesn't have a waistband, so again, I am just going to steal from the Hot Topic skirt and my brain and hope it all works out. Then it was a simple task of sewing everything together. Totally didn't sew half the waistband wrong and have to redo it. Nope, didn't do that. And then we were done.